Welcome, everyone. It's a real pleasure to be here, and I am extremely happy with the initiative that HIVE has undertaken. Um, it's not very often that we get to celebrate teachers and to really understand what we do in terms of our practice, and then to be able to spend time bringing all of that together. And I think Hive is doing a fantastic job with all of that. So congratulations to all the members who are active participants within the Hive group, and a very warm welcome to all of you teachers for being here, making time. I know this is a work week for you, and it's a rather busy week, and you've come here for this workshop. Um, I'll urge that we make this a conversation rather than me lecturing about things, because I don't think I am in that position to lecture. All of us are teachers. We learn every day and we learn different things, and I am hoping to learn from you as well. I'm going to get started, and I hope you can hear me. And if you can hear me, please just raise your awesome. Okay. All right. So I'm going to begin with the agenda. So what we are going to do today is I'll introduce this session to you and what it is that we are planning to do. I'd like to dedicate a large amount of time towards just eliciting responses from you, understanding how you actually go about thinking about writing for yourselves more than about your students. The second question that I have for all of you is to understand whether it is important to help our students see us as writers, right? One of the complaints that I at least have is that my students don't write enough, or they don't want to write. But when I have that expectation of my students, is it okay for my students to have that expectation of me as a teacher who writes? So I'd like to know what you think about that. And from there, we'll move on to how to write consistently. If you're not in the habit of writing, then how can we build that habit of writing? And what are the simple ways in which we can do that? We'll look at some exercises, and then we'll come to a closing of the session. Before we begin, I would like to know you. I'd like to understand you. So if you can just quickly read the points here and just tell me very briefly who you are and what is your motivation to be part of this workshop. It'll be wonderful. So I'm going to stop presenting for a few minutes. So I will begin by asking all of you to please introduce yourselves so I can know a little bit about you and we can take turns.
Dr. Sharoon, do you want us to type it or do you want us to unmute?
No, please speak. Please speak. I'd like to hear.
Okay. All right.
Please. Thank you.
So I guess I can start.
Sorry.
So I guess I can answer Hajuan Ede. I'm based in Sabah, Malaysia. I teach English language, and I like writing, and I like writing short stories and poems related to Sabahan culture. Especially related to my own ethnic group, which is Bajau. It's one of the indigenous group in Sabah. So I write them in English, but I inserted some Bajau language, Bajau words into my works. Yeah, that's all from me.
That's amazing. Thank you. And the question I'd like you to answer when you speak as well is to help me understand if you write, and if you do write, what motivates you to write?
Well, I think because I'm writing works that are related to my own culture. I think it helps to preserve the cultural heritage of certain ethnic groups, which I think is very important for a country of diversity, like in Malaysia.
Awesome. Thank you.
Hello, good day, doctor. Shall I?
Please go ahead, Praveen.
Okay, I'm Praveen, and first things first, thanks for the organizer, and thanks to all of you, and especially Dr. Sharon for your time. I'm Praveen. I'm teaching in Pahang in a secondary school English language. I'm teaching English language subject. for me, I started to pick up this writing, journal writing, because I've been reading about all the benefit, the positive effect of journal writing. So I tried to write ever since, like for over a year, but till now I'm still finding it as a rather a disciplined routine instead of writing for the fun, instead of like relaxing myself. Like every time I try to write, I find it like I need to like stress myself, really like put myself into it to write. So I hope by the end of the session, this could somehow change my mindset to write, try to write freely. Thank you,
Awesome.
Doctor.
Thank you, Praveen. Thank you.
Hi.
Emily, hi.
Yeah, I'm Emily. Emily John from Penang. Sorry, I'm having a bit of a sore throat. So I'm teaching in a secondary school here. I'm not a very creative person when it comes to writing. I think I'm more better at factual writing. So I've written a few articles and all that, and action research kind of thing. The latest was for English Language Teaching Center in Nilai. So that's my extent of my writing experience. So creative writing, I think, is a slightly different kind of way. So let's see what we can learn. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Marklin, would you like to go? I see you on the screen.
Okay, sure. Hello, everyone. Hello, doctor.
Hello.
All right. My name is Maklin. I'm from Sabah. I'm teaching here as well, together with Dr. Sahajuan Idek. We both in the same college, vocational college. So, regarding writing, I don't do writing that much, but I tend to write journal last year. Due to pandemic, there was nothing to do to encounter my stress, staying at home. So I used to write a few journals, and then they calmed me down. But for the creative writing that I try to impose to my students, I do not think that I could implement that kind of writing style to them, because I think I need more input, more inputs for them. So I hope by the end of this masterclass, I could get more inputs, and then I can use them for my students. Yeah, I
Thank
think
you,
that is all.
Mr.
Thank you.
Marklin. But where are you from? Which part of Malaysia are you from?
Sabah. I'm from Sabah. Yeah. I'm together with Dr. Sahajuan Idek. I'm working with him.
That's wonderful. Wonderful to hear. Thank you.
Thank you, doctor. Yeah.
I'm a little nervous about pronouncing your names correctly, so forgive me if I don't get it right. I've seen Ting Sukwa Kwam. Is that how I say your name? Sorry, you'll just have to tell me your name.
Hello, could you hear me clearly? Because
Yes.
it is raining heavily here. So, is
So
my voice
clear.
clear?
Very clear.
Very clear. Okay, so I'm going to make a short introduction for myself. I'm Ting Suk Hua, currently teaching in Bintangor, Sarawak, a rural area school. So I enjoy writing simple poems for my students to read actually. So what motivates me to write is actually I see myself as the role model to inspire my students to involve actively in creative writing. So that's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Adrian's introduced herself. Her mic's not working, and she's written quite a bit in the chat window. So I'd request all of you to please take a look at it. And it's wonderful to know that you write stories and letters, and you share these things. So thank you very much for sharing that with us. And Fiona has also written a little note on the chat box. So thank you, Fiona, for that. Anybody else would like to go?
Hi, can I?
Yes, please.
I am teaching in Selangor. I used to teach in Johor for about 8 years. Yes, I do write, but I don't think I consider it creative writing because it's more of like reflective writing. So I express my thoughts and everything. And this year I have a new family member. My baby niece was born. So I tried to pen down little things that I want her to read when she grows up. So it could be small things that maybe she took her first step or she smiled, those things which I penned down for her to, when she grows up she can um, read the joys that she brought our family. So yeah, that's it.
Thank you. That's excellent. And I see Siti is from Malacca. I can say, Siti, very confidently that I know Malacca because I was there for a conference before COVID, I think in May 2019. What a beautiful place. And so wonderfully clean. I can't claim that about any place in India. But I really enjoyed the hospitality, the people, and the warmth while I was there. So it was really wonderful to be there. And thank you for writing to us and letting us know that you do use creative writing in your classes because it's a wonderful way to get our students into writing and actually enjoy the process. Is there anybody else who'd like to go?
May I?
Yes, please.
Okay. Hello, I'm Maureen. I'm teaching from 6 students. I don't do creative writing. So most of my writing would be more to doing action research type of thing, article writing, and reflections about my lessons. I think that's about it.
Thank you. And where are you from in Malaysia?
Sorry, I'm from Kota Kinabalu.
Thank you.
Okay.
We have a teacher from Selangor. Her name's Chua. Chua, I don't see you on the screen, but thanks for writing the little note. Several of you doing action research, which is again very wonderful. It's not something that I see very often. And it's important for us as teachers to really talk about all the practices that are working within our classroom. So that's really great news. I'm happy that you're doing that. Hi, Anita. Anita is from Pahang. Thank you for being here. Do you write, Anita? Yes. That's great. That's really good to know. Do you write for yourself? Okay, thank you. All of this is coming in from the chat boxes. I don't think Anita can turn on her mic at the moment. That's good to know. That's really good to know that you have articles published. Sarhajwan, I've shared the slides with you, and if it's possible for you to kind of project them for me, I'll really appreciate that. Is there anybody else who'd like to go?
Hello, Dr. Sharoon. Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay, I'm Kat Pagam. I'm from Penang. I'm teaching in a secondary school. Actually, this is my almost 30 years of teaching. I love to write. My writing goes at two extremes. One is I love to write short stories. I write based on mostly the novels that I read. I'm more into a fantasy-based novel. So I incorporate those things in my short stories, which I share with my students often. And I'm also more of an academic writer where I write articles, publish articles, and so on related to my studies, especially so now. And I'm currently pursuing my PhD in UTM for English language as a second subject.
Amazing. And congratulations. Getting on
Thank
the
you.
PhD road is no small deal. So all the best.
Oh, yes. Very true.
Anybody else would like to go?
Okay. Can I share
Please.
to fill in the gap? So I like writing, do creative writing and I did a little bit of script writing for a radio education program once upon a time. And I feel like I need to develop this interest more. So hopefully I'll learn more from you in this masterclass. Thank you.
Thanks,
I don't.
Josephine.
Yeah, I'm Josephine from Kota Kinabalu.
Yes, thank you. And radio programs are supremely effective. I mean, for the people who are listening, and also as you as a writer then end up thinking about various things, you know, how can you make the script exciting for the person who's listening? So as a writer, you really, really have to do a lot of work to make that
Very
script very interesting. So wonderful to hear that you did do radio programs. That's excellent.
Thank you.
And so the question I have for everybody is, do you feel that it is important for your students to see you as writers? Is that important? And do you actually give them that space? Do you give your students the space and the opportunity to perceive yourselves as writers? Do you do that? And you can respond to that over a voice. You don't have to type it in the chat.
I think it's important for us to show our students that writing is not as scary as it seems.
And I'm glad you said that, because many people will not acknowledge that they have a fear of writing. Because many times that's really what keeps us from writing, right? We have this mental block in our minds that we can't do this type of writing or that type of writing. I can only do this kind of writing. So yes, that's good. But do you feel like you give your students that space where you allow them to see you as a writer?
Dr. Sharoon, when it comes to secondary school, I find that to teach writing, especially creative writing to the students, is a bit difficult because the exam format itself is very controlled. They are practically boxed in within a format and so on. So when you try to bring them out of it, go into creative writing, they tend to hold back because they find it is not useful when it comes to examination. So we have this sort of constraints when it comes to actually exposing them to creative writing. Difficult to identify whether they have it in them because they don't try.
Which is very true. I mean, a lot of our teaching and a lot of our practice is guided by the teach to the test philosophy, right? We have a curriculum, we have a syllabus that we need to complete at a certain point in time. And within the scope of the textbook, there is only so much you can do. You have the literature component, you have your language components that you have to complete and make sure that the students are able to take their exams. But within these spaces, within transacting your textbooks in the classroom, how often do you as teachers, again, right, what I'm consistently hearing is that you are very focused on helping your students learn. But what do you do for yourselves as teachers? That is actually my question. And your focus has been so trained on the students that I'm not hearing anything from you about yourselves. Do you, for example, take a piece of writing that may not be yours, something that you really enjoyed reading? Do you just for a few minutes in your classrooms, even if it's once a week or once a month, walk in and say, listen, I really liked reading this and I think you should listen to it as well. Or take your own pieces into the classroom and say, yesterday I felt like writing something down and I think it turned out pretty all right and I'd like to read this out to you. Do you do that?
I just share articles or pages. I put a copy from Reader's Digest and share them with my students.
That's great. I mean, any form of allowing your students to see that you are also a real person with interests, a real person that likes things outside of the textbook and the classroom, right? How many times do we do that? Very rarely. And I totally understand if there is no time to do that, right? Because you have maybe a 40-minute to a 60-minute session within which you have to finish your lesson plan for the day, and using a little time to indulge in something outside of the required textbook may not always happen, and it may not even be possible because the school system may not allow you to do that. But I will encourage you to find an opportunity for that to happen, because when your students begin to perceive you as somebody other than a teacher who teaches the textbook, the kind of relationship that you end up building is very different. It's very subtle. You won't be able to measure it right away, but it does have an impact. And I'll encourage you to think about this a little more seriously. Anybody else who wants to add to that, as to, whether you do it, whether you don't do it? That's great to hear, Tingsuk, that you do, write poetry for your students and that you share it with them. That's excellent. And I'll request that you share that with us at some point. One of the ideas behind this workshop is also to create a longer collaboration with all of us, where we create a writers group and we write and bring out an anthology of what we write. So if that's interesting to all of you or some of you, that's something that we should all pursue in the future. So here I'm going to step into the actual work that we are going to do today. Sirhajwan, would you please help me present the slides? All right, here we are. And could you, for a moment, think about a favorite poem that you have, a poem that involves a creature, or any poem that you've ever taught. Can you recall that? Is everybody familiar with The Road Not Taken? Okay, this is a nursery rhyme. If you can recall a nursery rhyme. Everybody knows the Incy Spider? And exactly, the Incy Spider, right? And most of us have learned it. We've also taught it to our students. Can you tell me if there is actually a story in the Incy Spider? Is there a story in Incy Spider? Okay, who can recall the poem for me? Who can recall the rhyme for me? Incy Spider went up the water spout. Sing it with me.
Crawling, Incy Spider crawling up the water spout. Down come the rain and wash the spider out. Up come the sunshine and bright and clear. Forgot
Rain away.
And dry up all the rain, and Incy Spider climb up the spout again.
Come on, we're all teachers, we're also performers. Nobody is singing with me. That's quite disappointing.
I only know Jack and Jill. I remember Jack and Jill. I actually created a script for that rhyme. Jack and Jill.
Okay, let's. Jack and Jill went up
the hill to fetch a pail of water. Jack fell down and broke his crown, and Jill came tumbling after.
Right.
So my story was about them quarreling all the way up, and then accidentally fell down, both of them.
Right. So
that was the story.
Every nursery rhyme, if you look at it, actually has a sequence of events that happen. And when you think about a story, what is a story? What should a story have?
A plot.
Is it only a plot?
A theme.
With a theme.
Character and characteristics.
Right.
Setting.
Excellent. What else?
Setting.
Exactly.
Moral values, issues.
Okay, moral values, perhaps not all the time, maybe sometimes. Okay.
There is solution.
There is a solution. So if you're looking at it from the Socratic story arc, then you begin the story a certain way. There's something that you're introduced to something's happening, and then this arc sort of builds where you're introduced to the plot, the setting, the character. There is a problem that is currently undergoing. It reaches the
Yes.
climax, and then you find a resolution, and so on,
Yes.
right? So every time we're thinking about helping ourselves, and I'm not focusing on our students here, because we need to think about how we want to construct the story. So before we even get to the place of a story, right, we have to think about the idea. What is it that I want to write about? And that's not always easy. We have hundreds of ideas that we'd like to write about, but not all of them will make good stories. So how do you arrive at your idea? Can you tell me how you do that? How might you think of an idea?
Brainstorm.
Okay. And then what do you do after you brainstorm?
Write a draft.
So you brainstorm and then you just directly go into your draft. Is that how it works?
Add branches to the main idea. That means add ideas, supporting ideas, details, examples, elaborations.
All right. So I'm going to ask you to do something, and let's see if this is how you actually write. Can maybe 5 people give me 5 random words?
Lettuce.
Lettuce? Is it because it's afternoon? Okay. Lettuce, we have strawberry, and then we have trouble, busy, and school. Great, all wonderful words. And everybody can see, okay, we have joy. So I'll take that as the last word, joy. Everybody has the words on the screen. So I'll read it out again. There's lettuce, and please make a note of this. Lettuce, strawberry, trouble, busy, school, and joy. And this is the start to how you might want to write something. And you're probably already familiar with this. It's called free writing, where you have a bunch of words or a sentence starter. You time yourself to either 7 or 10 minutes, and then you just write without stopping, right? It's a great way for yourself, and it's also a wonderful way to initiate your students into writing. So you have these 6 words. I'm going to give you 7 minutes, and I'd like you to write about anything at all. I mean, we're not looking at a particular theme, and I just want to see what each of us comes up with, and I'll write as well. I'm going to turn the timer on. And please begin writing when I say so. Your time starts now. Okay, that's time up. Please stop, even if you haven't completed what it is that you were trying to write. The idea is to really just loosen our muscles and just get into the flow of writing. Were you able to write? You have to use all 6 words.
Yes, I'm able to write, but so funny.
That's good. If you can make it funny, even better, right? What did you feel when you were doing this exercise? What did you feel?
For me, I'm a bit. I find it a bit difficult for me to write at first because the idea, my idea doesn't come in so quick, and I'm a bit scared.
Okay, but were you able to write?
Only a short paragraph.
That's fine. I mean, as long as you were able to just break into writing, right? Praveen sir, I'll ask you, because you told me about your journal and that, you feel very nervous and stressed because you are forced to really commit to that writing, right? Were you able to write?
I did write, but then I write for the sake of writing. As I told you, like it doesn't really flow. I need to okay, I need to write.
Okay. And I think a few people are posting their comments in the chat as well. So how did you feel when you had to undertake this sort of writing? Praveen, you can go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
I managed to write, but then how to put this? Like I write, and like the previous teacher, it's kind of like funny, and perhaps like I need to work more on this one
Okay.
to make it like to make it natural for me, instead of
Right.
like having me to be driven all the time.
Okay, fine. What about the others?
Managed to write something, but I kind of feel it's not so interesting.
Okay, it cannot be, because this is something that's happening at literally a click of a finger. I'm also saying you only have 7 minutes to do this, and you have all these words to work with. Now, I'd like you to think about this from the perspective of your students. Isn't this what we do to our students?
Yeah.
Right? And how often do you do this for yourself?
Rarely.
Rarely, right? At a workshop, perhaps. And that's perhaps what your students are feeling as well. So what I do with my students is, every class that I teach, whether I'm teaching poetry or prose or grammar, I always dedicate 7 minutes at the very start of my class to free writing. I'll pick certain vocabulary words that are related to what I will be doing for the rest of the class that day. And then I make my students write for those 7 minutes. So for about 1 or 2 weeks, they struggle because many of them are not used to this kind of writing. But by the third or the fourth week, they see a drastic change in the way they're able to write, because they can write at their own will, at the click of a finger, using the words that have been given to them. At some point, I also open it up where they suggest things to me. So, one aspect of it will be teacher fronted, and the second aspect of it will be student fronted. And students always, I've never had any student who's told me that this has not been useful to them. And I use this approach even when I teach adults. We begin every session with a quick write, or free write as we call it. And for those of you who are researchers, you can look at Peter Elbow. I'm sure you're already familiar with it. If you're not, then please do look up Peter Elbow. He's the pioneer of this method. And he's done some great work. He also has books where he suggests the ways in which you can use this in your classroom and for yourselves as teachers. When we have an idea, right, after we brainstorm, we need to sort of bring all of this together. For those of us who practice writing regularly, a free writing task is not very difficult. We can actually do quite a bit with it. I was able to write over 2 pages, and I'm still writing. But for those of us who are new to something like this, or we don't write very consistently, it can be difficult. And one of the difficulties arises because perhaps we don't read as much anymore, right? We are reading, yes, but we are actually reading only for what needs to be done for the class. So perhaps you're reading the textbook quite extensively, and to support the teaching of the textbook, you're reading additional resources to teach the lesson in the classroom. But outside of that, how much are we actually reading for leisure? Do we still do that? Do we still read for pleasure? Do we read? We pick up a book for leisurely activity?
Yes, I do.
I do.
Great. And how many of us do?
I do read. I read a lot. That's the way I relax.
And that's excellent. And I'm sure one of the reasons you're perhaps able to write is also because you read, right? You will see sentence structures, styles, variations in vocabulary, etc., which will reflect in your writing, right? So, as writers, it's also important for us to read. And one of the things that I actively advocate is read as a writer and write as a reader. And it's not easy to do those things, because every writer writes differently, every reader reads differently. And if you're able to understand how these two combinations work, you are a more effective writer, right? So I will request a few people to please read what you just wrote. We won't have time for everybody to read because we have still some more things to accomplish. So may I request one or two people to please just read what you have written?
I'll start.
Please.
I was busy eating strawberry in school while my friends were all busy completing the word puzzle with letters, and it was such a joy seeing them taking the trouble to solve the puzzle.
Okay, is that what you were able to accomplish?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else?
Mine is kind of like a short story, but very, very simple, I would say. Sally had received the beautiful letters from Tina over the past few months. Mostly it was about strawberries, as Tina lived near a strawberry farm. One day she received a letter stating Tina was in trouble and she had no one to ask for advice as her parents were very busy. She desperately needed some guidance on her problem. Sally suggested she ask a counselor at school for help and some advice. Soon after that, Sally received another letter stating that Tina had solved her problem and even received the Best Student Award. Sally was full of joy over her friend's achievement.
Super. That's actually a complete story. And you managed to do that in 7 minutes. Excellent. And you said you only do action research, factual kind of.
But I kind of feel my story is not so creative.
Remember, this is just the start, right? I mean, you definitely cannot write a full piece in 7 minutes, but you managed to do an entire story in 7 minutes. I think that's fantastic. So you should give yourself a pat on the back.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I'm going to read what I wrote as an example, if that's okay with everybody. And I didn't really have an idea as to where my story is going to go. All I had were these 6 words. And I just said, okay, let me write and see where this story takes me. So it's like running a marathon. You begin running, you don't know if you're going to finish the marathon or not. But at some point, you'll have a strategy for how you want to finish this. You might just walk the last mile to finish the marathon. I think that's what I really did. I set my grocery tote down at the table. And to be honest, it was the last thing I wanted to carry home that day. There were so many other things I was carrying that day: homework, worries, a squabble with a colleague. So, watching a giant head of lettuce and a box of strikingly red strawberries peeking out of an overly full basket was not very exciting until I noticed a whole other thing. It spelt trouble all the way. The worries of school and a long work day vanished when the head of a baby snake poked around furtively. It was busy trying to find a way out of. Perhaps it was weighed down on the tail by the lettuce, strawberries, and russet potatoes, none of which were appetizing, I'm sure. Why would a snake jump for joy, or in this case, slither towards a basket of vegetables? That's when it occurred to me. The snake must have slid in from the curbside when my basket lay askance near the bushes by the parking lot. What a terrific turn of events. There I was, feeling so dejected about what's that squabble. But here I was, just a few minutes after I left school with a baby snake in the boot. When they say good things come in little packages, I certainly was not expecting a little baby snake. So one of the thank you, Sarhajwan. So one of the things that I try to do when I write is this: I wake up every morning and I write. Some days it's just terrible, it's real garbage that I produce, but I still do it. Every morning for half an hour, I just write a page. And over a period of time, I have enough material that I can actually put together and then use it to build something bigger, something larger, right? So I'd like you to think about this as well for yourselves, because if you want to get into the habit of writing, even if you don't know what to write that day, you can just say, I really don't know what to write today because I have no ideas. And trust me, there will be a flow to even that. The inability to write will have a certain kind of story. So before we move into the next activity, if you have any questions for me, please do ask me.
Dr. Sharoon,
Yes, sir.
do you have any, tips on how you did that very impressive piece of writing within a very short period of time?
So one of the, I think to be honest, in early in my writing life, I never ever thought about the reader. I never thought about my audience. I always wrote about what I might like to read, right? But that's not the perspective one should have as a writer, because nobody cares about what I want to read, right? Everybody who reads wants to read because they want to find something interesting in it. So if you're thinking about it from the reader's perspective, what kind of twists and turns can you give as you write in your own writing that will perhaps be interesting to the reader, right? So when you're writing from that perspective, what can you do when you write? And usually when we write, it's an individual activity, it's done in isolation, and you actually have a lot of time. Nobody puts you in a straight jacket, puts on a timer and says, now write for 7 minutes, right? You have the space, you have the time, and therefore once you've drafted something quite roughly, you will then need to spend time looking at how, from a language perspective, is this the best sentence structure? Do I want to construct my sentence this way? I've used these words, but are these really the best ways for me to, the best vocabulary words to use? And more importantly, have I actually touched upon at least 1, 2, or 3 sensory organs of the reader? And what do I mean by that? Right? Have I addressed a sense of smell somewhere? Have I addressed, the sense of sound in something? The moment we say just lettuce, we may just think of a ball of lettuce, a head of lettuce, right? But all of us have eaten lettuce. What is so unique about a head of lettuce? Why do we all crave for a good salad? If you get a wilted papaya salad, is it the same as a nice crisp papaya salad? I'm sure you've eaten wilted papaya salads and just frowned and scrunched your expressions and said, "What is this? How can someone get a papaya salad wrong?" Right? So what's the difference? What's the difference between a good salad and a wilted salad?
The taste.
The taste, okay.
Yeah. And then when you eat, you feel happiness.
Okay, great. What contributes to the taste, really, when you eat a good salad?
I don't know. I just love food because food will make me feel happy.
Okay. So in a lettuce salad, the leaves are crunchy.
Yes, crunchy, crispy.
Right?
And
But if
the
it's
freshness. The freshness.
And can peanuts, if it's bad peanuts in a papaya salad, can you tell?
Yeah. You can, yeah, the smell, the oily taste.
It just totally puts you off,
Yes.
right? So how will you now explain this to a reader? How will you explain that the leaf is crunchy? What is the sound when you eat that salad? Is there a sound to the salad?
Yeah, the
Okay.
crunch.
Right?
Yeah.
Is there a smell to the salad? Is there, a certain kind of flavor that you can taste? Is there a kind of smell that hits you as soon as you bring the fork closer to your mouth? Do you smell something?
If I put the salad, I put the mint sauce, or I put in the lime, then I have the minty and the lemony taste.
Everyone's
That
Madam,
is,
everyone's thinking about a good salad now.
yes, then my goodness, that is the not explosive in your mouth, the lemon and the mint taste with the
Brilliant.
salad.
That is the word I was
Yeah.
looking for. It's an explosion of flavors in your mouth.
Yes.
And when you write like that, now I feel like, as soon as the session is over, I should go have a salad because this lettuce sitting later, right? So it is very important for us to think of these aspects when we write. So Sirhajwan, to answer your question, first of all, think of specific vocabulary words that you might want to use. Think of the sensory details that you definitely want to include in your writing, right? And even when you think about a strawberry, if you just say red strawberries, it doesn't really do anything. What other kind of descriptions can you give? So descriptions will play a very important part in, in being able to write better. Sad-looking strawberries, right, Sadbagam? So what will a sad-looking strawberry look like?
It doesn't look fresh. It sort of looks like, you have spots on it. It looks like, it looks sad. You can imagine, like when we watch cartoons and all that, we have strawberries with eyes and legs and all that. So you can sort of imagine something like that.
Right. And Adrian says mushy, wilted, right? Yes. When you touch a strawberry, typically what is it like? Is it like clay, like putty? Is it like jello? What is it like?
I think it's very firm when you touch it. It's very firm.
Yeah, and if you were to describe a strawberry, that's perhaps the words you would use. A good, firm, juicy looking red strawberry, right? And the entire image is formed in the reader's mind. And I'm really talking about very simple things here to help you make connections to more complex, larger things that you'll write about. And that's what we'll do in the next section. How many of you know what flash fiction is? Okay, so you've heard of a short story, and some of you are already doing that, right? Now, flash fiction is much, much shorter than a short story. It's quite popular among students because they get something new, something refreshing, and they only have to read very little to enjoy that little piece of writing. Flash fiction can be anywhere from 5 words. A story can be written in 5 words, and it can go all the way up to 100 words, but usually nothing more. Some people, of course, stretch it a little bit more. So the idea is to get your thoughts down, the story down in just these few words. And do you feel like that's easy to do?
Does it have supposed to have a meaning to it? Like, for example, if it is 5 words or 6 words, does it have to carry certain meaning to it?
Absolutely. It's got a plot, it's got a structure, it's got a setting, and it's even got a character, all in 5 words. Right? And it sounds very intimidating, but once you get into the habit of doing it, it's actually quite easy to do. And I'll walk you through the steps before into how you write flash fiction. But before we get on there, would you like a 3-minute break? Because you've all been staring at the screen for quite some time. If you want a 3-minute break, we can take that and come back, or else I can carry on.
So 3 minutes break. Okay. All right. 3 minutes.
We are at, my clock says 1:13, so I will be back at 1:16 as well.
Okay.
If everyone's ready to get started again, we can begin. Okay, thank you. So when you think about flash fiction, the best way to really think about it is like this: small on the page, big in the mind. And I've given you some examples below. The first one is actually by Ernest Hemingway. That was perhaps the first example of the shortest story ever written. And I'll request one of you to please read the first one out aloud.
For sale, baby shoes, never worn. Is that it, Dr. Sharoon? Okay.
That's it. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. What does that tell you? It's a story. What does it tell you?
It's about parents losing their baby.
Exactly. We don't know what happened, but we know that there was a baby. The baby passed away, and the baby had shoes, and they're up on sale. So there is quite a bit of a story right there, right? Now, as an example, I have removed a word. I removed the word baby in the second one. And can someone read that out?
For
Yes.
sale, shoes never worn.
Now, I've removed the word baby, right? Now, does this mean something?
It can almost mean the same thing as the earlier one, but here the character is open to anybody's guess.
Right? Correct. And thanks, Karpagam. So here again, the moment I remove the word baby, the character goes missing. It could just be an advertisement.
Yes.
It does not have to be a story of some form. So in just a few words, if you look at the first example, you can put a plot and a character together, right? And the last one, for sale, baby shoes, worn, right? Again, I've removed a very important word from there, which is never. And it changes the entire meaning of what can possibly be. And the very last one, and this is quite exciting for all of us, can one of you please read it out aloud with the correct pauses?
For sale, baby shoes, worn.
Okay, great. Would you read the very last one, please? The very last sentence at the bottom.
They both fell. She over his suitcase. He head over his heels.
Okay, so what does that mean?
She fell due to carelessness. He fell in love with her.
Absolutely, right? In just those very few words, you've actually constructed something quite brilliant. And this is not easy to do because you really have to scrunch up everything to be able to produce something so precise and creative and imaginative and a story. And let's try to do some bits of it today, and then perhaps we can work on it together again in a later session. So, as an example, I have another story for you here. Okay. And again, I'll request one of you to please read it aloud. It's just 127 words.
Okay, let me read.
Thank you.
We waited, huddled in the long grass. It'll turn your sixpences into shillings, they would say. There was no sound yet, other than our own too loud breathing and the everlasting larks that you could hear but never see. Sally clutched at my arm. The rails were singing. She dug her nails into me, and I didn't shake her off. The sound grew like a distant starling's, a rising rumble, a vibration in your bones, and then the great black whoosh of it tearing a hole through the world, and it was gone, leaving nothing but a stain on the air. Shakily, we climbed down to the tracks. They had told us wrong. Hers was bent, misshapen, useless. Mine, strangely, was not changed at all. The larks exulted on and on. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Lim. Thank you for a wonderful reading. What is the story about?
Two children at the railway tracks.
What's happening in the story?
They are checking out a theory.
They're checking out a theory that somebody told them about, correct? And what happens in the end?
Non-conclusive results.
Indeed, right? And is there a moral? Is there a moral at the end of this? So in the story, it's a 3-section story, okay? They set it up. The title and the first sentence actually sets up the story for you. So the reader knows what's coming. And in saying or calling it The Train as the title, you already kind of imagine a whole lot of things around it, right? Then you have the action and consequence. And the last bit, the third part, is where you have a dash of enigma, which makes us think as readers. So what's happening? In the beginning, the scene is set by the title and the first sentence. And immediately, there is some sort of an intrigue in the second sentence. The story also creates a certain kind of tension because it's building all of these things where Sally is clutching somebody's arm too tight. So all of these are somewhat sensory in its description, right? And there's some heavy breathing going on. There's a sound of something that's passing by. Something leaves its mark in the air. So there's a whole lot that's going on. In the middle, again, you see that many things are going on, but there is an underlying current. While there is nervousness, there is excitement. It ends on what sort of a note? Is it a happy note?
Not actually happy, kind of like confused, reflective.
Disappointment.
Lots of disappointment, right? And I don't know how many of you have actually tried that, where you keep a coin on the track and let the train pass on the coin. And what you get in return is a very deformed, different looking coin. And there seems to be some great excitement around the shapes in which they turn out. And for these children, it was not what they had anticipated, right? The outcome was completely different. So in some sense, the story is actually trying to perhaps say that you needn't always believe everything that you are told, because it may not turn out that way. So in about 100, a little more than 100 words, the author has communicated quite a bit in just such a short passage. Now, what I'd like for us to do is I'd like you to look at the first 3 points. Okay. And I'd like you to do this as a prose description. I'm giving you something very simple, something that you do every day. It's an object that you use every day, unless, of course, you are a believer in just sleeping flat out on the ground, which is extremely healthy for our backs. Anybody here who does not use a mattress to sleep on? Everybody does. That's brilliant. Okay, so let's get started. And this time, I think I'll get pretty much everyone to share what they have written. We may not have time to do all of it, but I'd like us to get started with the first and the second. And the last activity that I have is more reflective, which I'd like you to take home with you and work on it. And we'll put this together as part of our anthology and build a collection of stories that all of you will give back to the HIVE group. Can we start with the first one? Great. So in about 100 words, I want you to describe the bed that you slept in as a child. And it can just be, a compilation of things that you can recall. It doesn't have to be perfect. And once you've accomplished that, if we have the time, then I'd like you to move on to the second point, which is the bed that you sleep in right now as an adult. What is in it? What surrounds that bed? And what do you do in it? Well, we don't always have to share what we do in our respective beds, but just an idea of what do you think when you lie down? Is that a place where you think the most? Or is that the place where you find it to be the most relaxing, therefore you just fall asleep right away? Or is that the place that gives you the most discomfort? You're tossing and turning and thinking quite often, right? Anything that can come to your mind. And then the last one is you have something from your past, you have something from your present, but is there a future bed that you would like? And here's where you completely go crazy. It doesn't have to be made of anything that we already know. It can just be made of marshmallows, if that's what you like the most. Or it can be made of strawberries, if that's what you like the most. But something that is really outrageous. And this is where you're going to push your creative ability to see what you can come up with. Shall we take about 10 minutes for this?
Dr. Sharoon, so it's 10 minutes for every steps or?
No, let's just attempt the first one because we may not be able to complete all 3 at this point.
Oh, okay, all right.
Dr. Sharon, you want sentences, right? You're not expecting us to actually write in a paragraph form.
No, the first one, if you can just put a few sentences together, that's good enough for me.
Okay.
Okay, we're up for time, and I'll probably actually ask Mr. Fadli, are you online? I haven't heard from you, and I was just looking at the participants list. And if you're here with us, will you please share your 100 words?
Oh, hello.
Hi.
Hi, okay. Let me try, okay. One bad anticipated. Over the course of my childhood history, this wooden bed had been the one that accompanied me through ups and downs. As the night slowly engulfed the day, turning all the lights into darkness, I slowly retreated myself to my wooden bed. Some other moments, when the nightmare began tormenting my innocent soul, I slowly crept into my mom's bed, the one I found comfort and my slice of heaven. The longer I thought about my bed, the more I remember where all those Doraemon comic books safely stored and hidden from the eye of my parents. Right in between the mattress and the bed frame, I slowly pushed one comic in.
That is excellent. Excellent. Thank you.
Okay.
I mean, I really can see what you can do with it once you start editing it.
Okay.
It's really going to sound terrific. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Anybody else would like to read?
I would like to share, but mine is mostly sentences.
Go ahead.
Okay. My first bed was my dad's sarong. I'm not so sure the word. Okay. So warm and cozy, tied to the roof deck and left to hang down. I would find myself safe and cocooned inside, totally hidden. The best part is when both my mom and dad would play peekaboo with me inside the sarong cradle, them outside. Till now, I have never found a bed so safe, so cozy. It was as though I was sleeping in my parents' arms, so loved, so cherished.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you. Anyone else?
I would like to share, but I don't want to take others. Okay, I'll just read. It was the top bunk of a double-decker bed made of steel with a small narrow piece of mattress. It was painted gray, and my bed sheets and pillows were always floral. My mom's favorite choice. My bed was small with a thin mattress and very limited space, but it was still comfortable. My mom also made the cotton pillow herself, so they were very soft and cozy to hold, as well as full of love. There was a small steel ladder at the side for me to climb onto the bed, but I remember using the bottom part of the bed to climb up. Maybe that was the adventurous young me. This bed was something my parents, who worked hard to take care of us, could afford at that time.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you. So wonderfully written.
All right, thank you.
Anybody else?
I'd like to share mine.
Please.
Okay.
Please.
Good. It was hard wooden built bed that was strong enough to hold my constantly changing sleeping positions. It had a soft yet springy mattress with polka dot bed sheet wrapped around it. There were two pillows on it. One was for me to rest my head, and the other one was for me to hug when I was asleep. There was a boogeyman that lived underneath it, and it came out at midnight when the light was off. I often called out my dad whenever I saw its head popping out from the edge of the bed. Because I do believe there was a boogeyman underneath my bed.
As long as we are not thinking of the same boogeyman now. Thanks, Harjwan. Very well written. Thank you. Anybody else would like to go? If not, I'd like you to think about the point number 2 that's on the screen, which is write the same way about your current mattress and see if your perspectives are different. Is anybody else wanting to read?
Doctor, can I try, Doctor?
Please, please do.
Okay. Till now, I have no idea whose bed that I was sleeping on when I was a small boy. I never thought of asking my parents about it. Why should I? It was just a wooden bed and just a thing that is all too mundane to be even bothered about. But something jolted me. Back then, my father was earning a meager income. How could he buy a bed of that size that could fit both my brother and I? I was not small back then, so did my brother. Thinking of that now made me realize that the bed was not just a bed, it was my father's hard-earned income for our comfort.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you. And it's interesting to see that all of us, in fact, I've written that too. We never had a cot. We only had a mattress because making a wooden bed meant a lot of money. And therefore, my father was very prudent about it. And he said, we'll just roll up our mattresses. And every night it would come out. And in the morning, we just roll it back up and stack it in a corner somewhere. And all of us are sharing similar stories, right? We are coming from very different places, but our experiences are somewhat similar. And it's really interesting to know that in some sense, that actually brings us together, those memories from our childhood. So what is it like for us now? right? What sorts of beds are we sleeping in today? Are they the same or are they very different? Can we just write 100 words about that? Is it okay for us to share if some of you have completed the task?
May I try?
Please go ahead.
Comfortable, king-sized, surrounded by four tall frames and covered with mosquito netting, which never fail to keep the pesky little blood-sucking Draculas out. Allows me to sleep in any position, be it right side up or upside down. So soft, feather-like, cool and smooth, but springy and hard at certain corners. Talking about safety, I might say that it is not so since I've had my fair share of falls. Nevertheless, it never fails to give me a good sleep. My strong, sturdy wooden bed with a 10-inch springy mattress and soft, cushiony pillows, especially my bolster buddy.
Nice. Thank you. Very different from your childhood bed.
Can I share mine?
Please.
All right. A wonderfully big king-size Jati wooden bed. This is the bed that my husband and I chose when we were buying furniture for our own house. A beautifully designed wooden bed with a very comfortable and thick mattress. Comfort was the first thing in mind when we bought the bed and mattress. I love neutral nature colors, and the bed matched perfectly with my room's wall color. By this time, we already had 2 children who constantly want to sleep with mommy and daddy, so the size was great. All of us cuddled together, sharing stories and talking about what's happening in our worlds. Then came our third child, who joined her sisters in tackling daddy while he's sleeping or snuggling with mommy when they were not well. A place for rest as well as creating memories.
Superb. Superb. Thank you. Anyone else?
I'd like to try.
Please.
My favorite thing in my bedroom is my big king-size bed. I loved it because it is the only thing in my house that I can take a breather. My bed is soft and is a haven for me, with an array of storybooks and stacks of magazines at the side looking like a tall, tall tower. Sometimes I listen to some mellow music lying down on my bed and unwind. Sometimes I would read a storybook bundled up in my warm bed with my purple blanket and say to myself, this is my favorite place to be, my bed.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you. Thank you. Saraswati, we haven't heard from you. Would you like to share?
Yes, doctor, but not much.
Please go ahead, whatever you've been able to write.
Okay, I remembered how we used to share our bed together, how we set our own territory and not to cross over the other zone. Okay, our bed sheets and pillowcases were engulfed with flowers, the flowers that we favor. Okay, I learned about sharing and tolerance when I shared my bed with my beloved one. Okay, that's all.
That's good. That's good for a start. Thank you for trying.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. Okay, so in the interest of time, I am going to stop the request for shares. But what I would like you to do is, I think Sirhachwan will be able to share this with all of you, the slides. I'd like you to complete this activity. So the third step is that you imagine a bed that's completely out of this world, something that you can create out of anything that you like. So there's just no limit to what you can do with this. And then you combine all three in a manner that it reads like a story. And once you've been able to do that, the last step is where you use a similar approach to the word teacher. Did you have a favorite teacher when you were a child? What was this person like? What particularly did you like about this person? When I remember my favorite teacher from my childhood days, I think of her saris. She would come, she was the most kindest, warmest, most affectionate teacher I've known all my life. But the one thing that I keep recalling about her was all the colorful saris that she would wear. And so this whole idea of, this wonderful woman just keeps repeating itself every time I think about a teacher. And then to think about yourself as a teacher, what is it that your students like about you? What do you do for them that really makes them like you so much? Well, some of us, and in some instances, it's possible that certain sets of students don't like us at all, no matter what we try to do for them, right? And you can write about that as well. And in the end, you write about an ideal teacher. Are you that kind of a teacher? If you are, then you can very proudly state that you are. And if you aren't, what is it that's stopping you from becoming one like that, the ideal teacher that you have in your mind? Right? So we are trying to combine all of that together, and then we build that into a story. And that is a story that we put into our collection that we are trying to build. Do you have any questions about this particular activity?
Please feel free to ask questions, or you may type in the chat.
Well, all of it put together should roughly be about 300 to about 400 words, because each one is about 100 words. Okay, if there are no questions, then I'll assume that you've understood what it is that you'll have to do. If I may ask you to share your experience about the 2 hours that we've spent together. It wasn't a lot, and I know we weren't able to do quite a bit of writing, but we can definitely think about another session that's a little more advanced from the one we just attended to build on what we learned. Was this useful? Would you like to think about other ways in which we could write? Can you please share what you thought about these 2 hours?
Now, Kadi, where I know.
Saraswati, would you like to go first?
I think I learned a lot from here. Usually, I like writing. I do write poems, I do write short stories and all that. And I do get involved in competitions, and I've won few. But I have problem in making my students to write, to see, writing is a, enjoyable activity to do. As like Madam Emily or Karpagam just now said, but students are bounded with exams. They have syllabus, they have exams, so they really how to say, they really limit their self to see how creative writing can be and how enjoyable writing can be. And I think by taking part in this workshop, I have a bit confident of making my students to write or to love writing and all that. Okay, I think that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Saraswati. Thank you. Others, please feel free to share. Thanks, Anita. I'm glad that you now know about flash fiction and you can actually use it in your classes. Yes, Liu, it's a great way. Collaborative writing is very effective. So please use that as often as you can in your classrooms. If nobody says anything right at the end, then I'll just assume that this was not an effective session. It's quite hard.
Uh, Sharoon, I think what I really like about it is about how challenging writing can be and how exciting can it be when you put constraint on it. I think what you did with the first activity, you gave us 6 words. So and we have to come up with a story from it. So 6 words. There are very few words, and we have to come up with a story that is very exciting. So sometimes within constraint, there's creativity that we can develop. And I think in the next in the follow-up task with these 100 words, 100 words, I think for English teachers we can write it pretty well, but the context that you assign to us, which is the bed that we were sleeping. So I thought that's pretty challenging, and we really had to really think about it. So I think that's what I like about this session, because writing, if you give us like a topic, my favorite teacher, my favorite book. So it's much easier to write, but then with the one that you assigned to us about bed that we were sleeping at, so I thought that's very, something that we couldn't really think of before. So that's what I like about it. And I think I learned a lot from it.
Excellent. And one of the things about being creative, we always say think out of the box, right? Which is true. But being able to think within a box is also very, very important. And when you can mix and match the two, what you produce is truly remarkable. So thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Anybody else? Is there something more we could do when we meet again?
Dr. Sharoon, my experience from these 2 hours is, since I'm more of an academic writer, and my creative writing is mostly hindered by, trying to figure out whether it's making sense or not. But here, when you give us words like the 6 words or the 100 words, you don't put. I don't find it a constraint, because you don't put terms, you don't put any sort of rules to it. So we just let go. So when we let go, it doesn't matter if it is funny or if it is serious, or whether it's like something that is giving out certain strong meaning or whatever. So it's relaxing, and I find that maybe if I can make my students feel relaxed, then their creativity can come to the fore. It shouldn't be a problem.
Super. Thank you. I'm glad you feel that way. And I really like the fact that you use the word let go. In creativity research, there is a concept of what is called the flow. And it's quite extensively researched now. And if you look at that, writing is one space that actually allows for the flow to happen. And I think that's exactly what you're trying to talk about, letting go and feeling bringing that focus in. So I'm very, very glad that it's something that you were able to do. Thank you for sharing. Adrian has a question. Does giving students visual stimulation through pictures or images hinder creativity, or would it help them write better? Well, it would depend on what it is that you're trying to do, I suppose. In some instances, it could hinder. So, for example, if you're asking them to do some sort of a descriptive task, and you give them a picture which is already quite detailed, then it might actually hinder the process of description. But if you give them something that's quite limited and then get them to write about it, it could work really well. On the other hand, if it is something that they've never seen in their lives before, and you give them a picture, it might hinder the process. Versus, getting them to imagine and then write about that. So it could work, and sometimes it may not work. But in a lot of cases, I would encourage you to use images, short videos, because visual stimulation is good for students. Many of them are visual learners, they're kinesthetic learners. And when we withdraw these sorts of sensory inputs, right, it may not be in their best interest. So I will encourage you to use images and videos if that's possible. And if you are already doing that, I think that's great.
Dr. Sharoon, thank you for the interesting sharing. I find it, I'm kind of surprised at myself that actually can write something creative, because I find that most of the time is maybe because of the constraint of time and all that, you maybe forcing yourself to think, and the topic is kind of close to heart, so that made it a bit easier, I suppose. So maybe the choice of topic also plays a role in getting our students or even ourselves to write.
It does. And oftentimes, thank you for sharing that, Emily. And very often, and I'll go back to what Praveen had said earlier, we feel a lot of stress and we think that we should pick these very, philosophical or large topics that we should write about. But sometimes something as small as the bed can truly open philosophical conversations, because it brings so many memories, ideas, values together, right? So we may just want to think about one simple topic, and then what comes out of that can be quite elaborate. And I am truly impressed with your ability, Emily. When you said I'm, an action researcher, I can only write factual information. In my mind, I was thinking, you have no idea what you're capable of doing. Begin writing and you will surprise yourself. And I think that's really what you did today. So kudos to you for trying and keeping at it. And my request to all of you is that, much like learning how to run to run to stay fit, it's not something that we can do for 1 week and hope that the effects will last a lifetime, right? We have to keep doing it for us to continue to earn the benefits of being well. Writing is something like that. We have to write fairly consistently, and we really have to push ourselves to do it in the beginning. And once it becomes a habit, then you'll write more consistently. And I think all of you agree quite unanimously that it's a very enjoyable thing to do. So when you enjoy it, you'll find it very easy to pass it on to your students as well, because you know what you want to do for your students. So without continuing on and taking more of your time, let's think about how we can continue to work together. And I really appreciate all the time that you made today, despite your busy schedules. It was right after your work day, I understand. And I'm really grateful for your time. And I'm very happy to be part of this initiative. Thank you for having me.
Okay, I'm taking over. Thank you, Dr. Sharoon. I know we would like to continue, but since we are limited to 2 hours, thank you from all the participants, teachers, for joining us. Before we screen off, I would like every one of you to switch on your camera so we can take pictures of us all. Shall we?
Yes.
Okay. Can I have someone to screenshot for us?
I'll do it.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam
All look at
Lim.
the screen.